published by special arrangement with Samuel Bagster and Sons. Both of these translations of the Greek Old Testament will enable those not knowing Greek to easily access and follow the Septuagint in English. Translations of the Greek Old Testament that do not match one of the two mentioned editions are my own. My references to the Dead Sea Scrolls come primarily from the edition of Florentino Garcia Martinez, The Dead Sea Scrolls Translated, and sometimes reference was made to the Dead Sea Scrolls Study Edition, edited by Florentino Garcia Martinez and Ibert J.C. Tichlar, second volume. In addition, other translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls were consulted and sometimes preferred in quotations. For example, André Dupont-Sommer, The Essene Writings from Qumran, translated by Geza Vermesh. At times, variations in the translation from the primary text of Martinez are due to the author's own translation. References to ancient Greek works, especially those of Philo and Josephus, including English translations, are from the Loeb Classical Library. References and some English translations of the Apostolic Fathers come from the Apostolic Fathers, translated by J.B. Lightfoot and J.R. Harmer, and edited by Michael W. Holmes. Introduction. The thesis of this book is that Christ's resurrection and ascension place him as the beginning of the eschatological fulfillment of the new creational kingdom. Therefore, and more specifically, he is the beginning fulfillment of the following Old Testament end-time expectations, which are addressed in the chapters listed. 1. The resurrected Christ is the last Adam, Son of God, and true Israel, chapter 3. 2. He is the temple, chapter 4. 3. He was true Israel, chapter 5. 4. He was justified, declared to be righteous, holy, perfectly sanctified, and redeemed, chapter 6. 5. He was a king-priest who had the status of having successfully endured the end-time tribulation, chapter 7. 6. He was a mission-oriented returnee from exile who sends his word throughout the earth, and he was reconciled to God, chapter 8. 7. Christ comes to be identified with the Spirit, filled and led by the Spirit, chapters 9 and 10. 8. Christ achieves righteousness, fulfilling the law, chapters 11 and 12. 9. Christ is identified with glory, chapters 13 and 14. 10. Christ is God's image and one separated from the world, chapter 15. 11. The resurrected, regenerated Christ is a new creation, chapters 16 and 17. Christ became these things at his resurrection, though he began to fulfill them even in his earthly ministry. At his ascension, what he was functionally during his earthly ministry, Son of God, last Adam, Messianic King, filled by the Spirit, etc., was escalated. A further part of the thesis is that the preceding inaugurated eschatological realities have been attributed to believers through identification or union with the resurrected and ascended Christ. What is true of Christ in his end-time resurrection and ascension is true of believers in their union with his resurrection. This relationship between Christ's resurrection and believers' union with him in his resurrection can be depicted as a diamond. The diamond represents Christ's resurrection as the beginning of the end-time kingdom and new creation. The facets of the diamond are the specific eschatological realities that Christ became and that also accrue and are attributed as benefits to believers in union with the resurrected Christ. When believers come into union with Christ, they are imprinted with all the benefits that Christ possessed at his resurrection and ascension. To use a mixed metaphor, the facets of the diamond equals the attributes of Christ at his ascension are imprinted on believers as the facets of a seal are imprinted on a surface. This is not an inanimate impression, but an impression that consists of a lively union with Christ. Alternatively, the relation of Christ's attributes that are passed on to believers could be pictured as a wheel with spokes emanating from its hub. The hub is the resurrected Christ as the new creational core, from which each spoke originates, each spoke corresponding to a facet of the diamond.